Okay, so yes, this review is coming on a Wednesday afternoon as opposed to a evening. I had some space in between work at home, so I kind of figured I would just do my review on this movie, which has hit its 20th anniversary this year, which is The Matrix, which is probably that's probably one of Keanu Reeves' most well-known roles, if not his most iconic role. Because I'm pretty sure I think there's really three main movies that people are always going to remember. Or actually, maybe four movies that people are always going to remember Keanu Reeves for: Bill and Ted, this movie, Speed, and more recently the John Wick movie series. And yeah, this was one of the first action movies that Keanu had done in his career. And the movie by the Wachowski brothers before they decided to have sex change surgery, which, if that, no problem with that. I'm just going to say that I'm totally cool with that before I get into this long speech that makes people start going, huh? Huh? I don't like you anymore. Bye. I'm just going to stop before I say anything stupid. Um, but at this point, it was the Wachowski brothers. And this movie does sort of present a interesting idea, which is that our reality is nothing more than a simulation run by a computer. We've simply been living in a CGI world that we think is reality, but it turns out what's actually the real world is a barren wasteland covered in metal and machinery with people held up in these pods that are almost like mechanical wombs of some sort. So the main plot of the story is that Keanu Reeves plays Thomas Anderson, better known as Neo, who gets roped into this fight for man versus machine thanks to a well-known rebel by the name of Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne. So the rest of the movie is Neo getting broken out of the Matrix and him trying to learn how to become the One. Which, confusingly enough, Neo is just an anagram for saying one. So, yes, as it would seem, this is a chosen one narrative. And this was the first of three movies and a set of short films, The Animatrix, that try to explain more about the world and continue the adventures of Neo. But since we're only focusing on the 1999 original film, I'm not going to pull any references to the other movies, mainly because I haven't seen them, and also I'm only reviewing the first film. I'm not doing a franchise overview. I might try that someday with a movie series, but this isn't the time. Um, so one of the things I will say about this movie that I think was really well executed was the sense of mystery and build up before they finally reveal what the Matrix is. Because I don't think you figure out, I don't think the whole truth is revealed to everyone in the audience what the Matrix really is until maybe somewhere near the end of the first act and somewhere at the start of the second act. Because a lot of it is just fleshing out Neo's life as sort of this computer guy who is working for a software company, but it's one of those movies where the chosen one is someone who's always had a unique look at the world and someone who's always sort of felt out of place or at odds with the norms of society. So yeah, this movie does have a few cliches, but they don't train wreck the movie, as I'll continue to explain. So when Neo finally does figure out what the reveal is after he meets Morpheus, it's actually a pretty horrifying, shocking, and amazing revelation. And I can only imagine what audiences were thinking when they saw the reveal in theaters for the first time. And what I like about the movie is that it does have some action in the first half, but once it gives you a basic understanding, because after Neo and the audience realizes what the Matrix is, it does go like maybe about the majority of the second act is just explaining everything. So the audience, you got the build up. Now you have a lot of questions at the reveal. Let's take some time to try and flesh out the questions a little bit so you can get an idea of what we're talking about. And I think for a very dialogue heavy script, even though the characters aren't as charismatic or as energetic as they probably should be, it still makes for interesting conversation and it still keeps you hooked just by the bizarre, somewhat unique sci-fi theming of it. Um, I'm trying to think of what else I can say. The effects, most of the effects for a movie that came out 20 years ago, most of them hold up fairly well. There are a few that look a little ropey and a little phony, but then again, let's be honest. If a movie's like 15, 20, 30 years old, the effects are not always going to beat the test of time. Sometimes films that are even older than The Matrix look phenomenal. Like most of the effects in Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park and Forrest Gump look pretty impressive. There's some effects from the original Star Wars movies and the Indiana Jones trilogy that look pretty good. But even with those movies, some of those effects, I mean, put it this way, if an effect is dated, there's no guarantee that it's going to somehow beat that. But there's some pretty cool stuff. And yes, the bullet time is pretty awesome. It does kind of provide an interesting, unique, stylized look to the film. And it would be mercilessly parodied and made fun of for years after that. So that's as much as I can say. And what I think is interesting is how the villain, Mr. Smith, Agent Smith, played by the evil Hugo Weaving, it is interesting how he's meant to be a program. He's meant to be a robot trying to help take over the world, but he can't shake this feeling that he really wants to be human. So that was kind of an interesting idea that they never really dove that much into, but my negative thoughts on the movie is that while it does have a lot of great ideas going for it and a lot of interesting ideas and philosophies, one of my major criticisms of the movie is, as I mentioned before, is that the characters just aren't that engaging. I mean, a few of them are. The Oracle is pretty engaging. Morpheus, even though he kind of has the bland robotic voice, I mean, he's a human, but even though he has a bland sounding voice, he still has enough charm and charisma to kind of get you to want to follow him. You can see why people see him as a leader and why people want to get on his side. As for Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, who play Neo and Trinity, there's some chemistry between them, but for the most part, it doesn't really it doesn't really work. And it's one of those love stories where it's just like, oh, it's in the script. It happens because it's in the script, not because it actually develops naturally between the characters. But the movie, this is one of the few movies where, despite those flaws, it's still entertaining enough with the action scenes, the shootouts, the fight scenes. It almost kind of makes up for that. So overall, I do think this is a really good movie. I can see why it would blow some people away because at the time it came out, action movies weren't necessarily, littered with Yoda-like speeches throughout it. So it was kind of unique at the time, but now I think people kind of have gotten sick of the formula. But overall, it's kind of a nice little time capsule. And I think what I like about the message is that, humans becoming controlled by machines, it's kind of interesting right now. I'm being controlled by a machine right now because I need this computer to get this review out there on YouTube. So hopefully I can get people to see and talk about or comment on the video. So that's kind of a sense of control in a way because this machine is controlling me to create something in the hopes of getting attention, Or just the idea that, mankind is easily manipulated and controlled by technology. And it's actually kind of interesting to see this come out in 1999 because, 2 decades have gone by and we've become more dependent on our phones, computers, the internet, TV. So it's kind of like one of those films that's almost more timeless with each passing year, despite some of the dated effects. Um, and I think the one other thing I can say is that one of my favorite lines from the movie is the line where Morpheus is telling Neo to open his mind. I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. And I really like that idea that, hey, look, I can give you an idea of what's going on. I can show you all these cool ideas and concepts, but you're the one that has to commit yourself to learning them. It's wonderful. It's just a wonderful philosophy, and it's a lot of cool stuff. So I think that I've rambled long enough about this movie. I'm not sure. I'm probably, if I see this movie this weekend, I'm probably gonna review Batman meets the Ninja Turtles, and hopefully somewhere in June I can see Detective Pikachu. But as for now, this is my review, and hopefully you guys will like what I post on YouTube.